So we have an Anne Spencer Morrow. She's born June 22nd, 1906 in Englewood, New Jersey. Her father is a partner in J.P. Morgan & Co., which is a bank, obviously, and he becomes a United States ambassador to Mexico and United States senator from New Jersey. So he's pretty prominent, as you can tell. And her mother is a poet, a teacher, and is active in women's education, who serves as acting president of Smith College. Annie is second of 4 children. The family household is one that fosters achievement and success. Every night, in fact, their mother reads to all of them for an hour. And as a result, the children quickly learn to read and write, and ultimately start reading to themselves and writing poetry and diaries. Anne first attends the Dwight School for Girls in Englewood, a college preparatory school for K through 12. She ultimately graduates from the Chapin School in New York City in 1924 and continues her education after high school and attends Smith College, one that her mom was very active in. She receives academic awards such as the Elizabeth Montagu Prize for her essay on women of the 18th century and the Mary Augusta Jordan Literary Prize for her fictional piece called Leda Was Beautiful, and ultimately graduates with a Bachelor's of Arts degree in 1928 at 22 years old. Now, allow me to pivot. I want you to hold that family and Anne in particular in your mind. Let's pivot to another person. Charles Lindbergh is born in Detroit, Michigan, February 4th, 1902, and spends most of his childhood in Little Falls, Minnesota, and Washington, D.C. He is the only child his parents have, with an exception to paternal half-sisters. Ultimately, his parents do separate in 1909 when Charles is about 7 years old. But Charles also comes from a family with merit. His father is a U.S. congressman, and his mother is a chemistry teacher at Cass Technical High School in Detroit. Charles attends more than a dozen schools from Washington, D.C., and even spanning to California during his childhood and teenage years. None for more than a year or two, including Force School and Sidwell Friends School while living in Washington with his father. And as he lives with his mother in California, he attends Redondo Union High School in Redondo Beach, California. But ultimately, Charles graduates. Fortunately, he graduates June 5th, 1918 from Little Falls High School, the same school his mother teaches at this time. After high school, Charles decides to enroll in a College of Engineering program at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. But in late 1920, he decides this is not for him. So he drops out in the middle of his sophomore year. And he says, you know what I want to do? I want to learn how to fly. So he decides to attend flight training school in Lincoln, Nebraska. So we have Anne and we have Charles. Anne and Charles meet December 21st, 1927, when Anne is 21 and Charles is 25. So this is a little bit right before Anne graduates, right? And they meet in Mexico City because Anne's father happens to be an ambassador, and he's also a financial advisor at J.P. Morgan & Co. for Charles, right? So he invites Charles out to Mexico. And this so happens to be when Charles is on a goodwill tour throughout Latin America. He's flying around. So at this time, Anne is still obviously very young, and she's very shy as a young lady, But on the contrary, Charles is like a high-profile aviator, He's been flying solo across the Atlantic, which, kind of gives you this idea of like a hero in some way. Like, wow, you're able to pull through these long flights by yourself, and this is amazing. Wow, right? Because aviation's still very young at this time, So it's very interesting. Charles stays with the family. He stays with the Morrow family as he visits. And this allows for Charles and Anne to really kind of interact with each other. So Anne, immediately she's like, wow, this guy is, he's stunning, right? She even writes in her diary, he's taller than anyone else You see his head in a moving crowd, and you notice his glance, where it turns as though it were keener, cleaner, and brighter than anyone else's, with a more intense fire. What could I say to this boy? Anything I might say would be trivial and superficial, like pink frosting flowers. I felt the whole world before this to be frivolous, superficial, and ephemeral.
She wrote that somewhere in her diary.
Yeah, she wrote that in her diary, right? As this trip is going on, she's like, wow. But despite her shyness and despite his prominence, the two ultimately kick it off well, and they marry in a private ceremony May 27th, 1929, at a home of her parents in Englewood, New Jersey. That year, Anne flies solo for the first time, and in 1930, she becomes the first American woman to earn a first-class glider's pilot's license. In 1930s, Charles and Anne explore and charter air routes between continents together. The Lindberghs are the first to fly from Africa to South America, and they explore polar air routes from North America to Asia and Europe. They're just having a great time, right? It sounds amazing. The two ultimately bore a child together named Charles Jr. He is born on Anne's birthday, Anne's 24th birthday, June 22nd, 1930. Okay, so Anne and Charles just started this new family, right? Clearly, Charles has taught Anne aviation and, how to obtain a license, to become adequate enough to obtain a license. Not even just flying, but just having the knowledge, right? The two have kicked it off well. And it makes sense, right? Because he was connected to her father for some time. He trusted her father, I'm sure, enough to allow him to be the financial advisor for him. So it's just, it's interesting, right? Yeah. It's a nice start, right? It's awesome. But let's fast forward to March 1st, 1932. Charles hears an odd noise in their New Jersey mansion, but he dismisses it. He's like, okay, I don't know what that noise is, but it couldn't be that big of a deal. Moments later, the home nurse comes to check on baby Charles and finds that he's missing from his crib. So she's like, oh my goodness.
Where's the baby?
Well, I mean, initially she's like, well,
maybe the parents.
Did you climb out of here somewhere? Like, where are you at? Right? But then she's like, I've looked around and I don't see any kind of trace. I don't hear him. What is going on? So she immediately alerts Charles. Something has gone wrong. He immediately goes to the child's room and finds a ransom note containing poor handwriting and grammar in an envelope on the windowsill. He takes his gun and he goes around the house and grounds of the property with the family butler. Right? He's looking around. Do you see anything? I don't see anything, but I mean, do you think there's any kind of traces, right? They find impressions in the ground under the window of the baby's room, pieces of a wooden ladder, and a baby's blanket. So it really seems like Charles Jr. has been taken. The butler telephones the Hopewell Police Department, and Charles contacts his attorney and friend, Henry Breckenridge, and the New Jersey State Police Department. An extensive search of the home and its surrounding area is conducted by police nearby Hopewell Borough in coordination with the New Jersey State Police. After midnight, a fingerprint expert examines the ransom note and ladder. No usable fingerprints and footprints are found, though, leading experts to believe that the kidnappers probably wore gloves and had some type of cloth or soles on their shoes to really make it hard for us to pick up any kind of prints. No adult fingerprints are found in the baby's room, including areas witnesses admitted to touching. So this is Charles and the home nurse, basically. There are no fingerprints at all found, right? But
where's the mom at that time?
The mom, I would believe that she was in the house, but the focus is on the nurse telling Charles. So ultimately, they did bring in Anne to also look at this and point this out.
Thing, like, the mom has to know, like, pronto.
But I mean, it's a mansion, so It's a mansion, and I'm sure Anne was notified, of course, as well. But it's like a huge focus is on Charles, as he's kind of like the head of the house, and it's his duty to protect the house and protect everyone in it.
Okay.
So there are no adult fingerprints found, but there are baby fingerprints found. And the brief handwritten ransom note contains many spelling and grammar irregularities. So let me read it to you. Dear sir, have $50,000 ready, $25,000 in $20 bills, $15,000 in $10 bills, and $10,000 in $5 bills. After 2 to 4 days, we will inform you where to deliver the money. And things are misspelled. I'll continue, but things are misspelled. We warn you for making any public or for notify the police the child is in good care. Indication for all letters are signature and 3 holes. So I honestly read it, I'm honestly reading it better than how it's actually spelled, so you can understand it a little bit more, but a lot of misspelling, a lot of irregularities. At the bottom of the note, though, there are 2 interconnected blue circles surrounding a red circle, with the hole punched through the red circle and 2 more holes to the left and right. On further examination of the ransom note by professionals, they find it was all written by the same person. They determine that due to the odd English, the writer must have been foreign. And he's definitely spent some time, very little time in America. I don't think this person has been here for a very long time.
Yeah.
Another attempt at identifying the kidnapper is made by examining the ladder that was used in the crime to abduct the child. Police realized that while the ladder was built incorrectly, it was built by someone who knew how to construct with wood and had prior building experience. But there are no fingerprints found on this ladder either.
Who's the guy?
Silvers of the wood are examined, right? This could be our next step, right? All right, so no fingerprints, but let's maybe see where you can find this type of wood, or just kind of look deeper into the wood. So silvers of the wood are examined. The police believe that this evidence will lead to the kidnapper. They have a professional see how many different types of wood are used to construct a ladder like this, and what pattern is made by the nail holes, and if it has been made indoors or outdoors, right? Maybe that would be useful. By March 2nd, 1932, FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover contacts the Trenton, New Jersey Police Department. He tells the New Jersey Police that they can contact the FBI for any resources, and basically will have full assistance for this if needed. If you need our help, we'll be here. This time, the FBI did not have federal jurisdiction until May 13th, 1932, when the president declared that the FBI is at the disposal of the New Jersey Police Department. The New Jersey State Police offers a $25,000 reward, which is equivalent to about $566,288 in 2024. And they offer this reward for anyone who could possibly provide some information pertaining to this case. The Lindbergh family offers an additional $50,000 reward of their own. They're thinking that, we should beef it up so that we can really make this enticing. Hopefully someone will turn something in for us.
Yeah.
At this time, the total reward is about $75,000, or approximately $1.6 million, if you're counting it in 2024, which is obviously that's a tremendous sum of money.
It is.
That's very enticing. And at this time, the Great Depression is going on. So it's like an economic collapse going on throughout the country. So 1.6 million is
That's good.
very, very nice. So word of the kidnapping spreads quickly, obviously, and as a result, hundreds of people go to the estate. And unfortunately, the bad thing about that is they start destroying any possible fingerprints that weren't uncovered yet. So imagine maybe the kidnapper touched the wall a certain way, or maybe before they put their gloves on, they did something at the house, right? So now we've gotten rid of the evidence, right? Any possible footprint evidence. Now you have, Joe Blow from down the street's footprint in your lawn, right? Where we could have just been focusing on the kidnapper's footprints.
Yeah.
Now we've lost it. And it's not just people who just arrived, like, people who just heard the story. Obviously, military and police that were connected to Charles show up as well. The military individuals, they offer their help to find Charles Jr. or baby Charles, if you want to say. So Charles obviously talks to them about it, and they speculate that the kidnapping was perpetrated by organized crime figures. People who, obviously probably want some kind of money or some kind of favor from him. They probably took his kid. Like, who else would be able to do this so easily and get off? I mean, at this time, organized crime figures are huge right now. And they also think that the letter was written by someone who speaks German as his native language. Because it's just how some of it is written, it's kind of close to German, like how some of the words were written. And, since Charles is such a prominent figure at this time, he's able to really influence and control the direction of the investigation. So if he says something, this will definitely lead to some kind of action by others. But Charles contacts Mickey Rosner, a person who works on Broadway that knows mobsters. Rosner turns to two speakeasy owners, Salvatore Salvi Spitelli and Irving Bitts, for aid. Charles quickly endorses the duo and appoints them as his intermediaries to deal with the mob. Several organized crime figures, such as Al Capone, Willie Moretti, Joe Adonis, and Abner Zwillman, offered to help return the baby, or baby Charles, in exchange for money or for legal favors. Because some of these men are locked up.
Yeah.
Especially Al Capone. Al Capone offers assistance in return for being released from prison under the pretense that his assistance would actually be more effective, because I know a lot of people. I can help your kid, I can help find your kid.
So it's turning out to be like the cops can't necessarily do something, but the locals can do it?
It seems that the locals are like, well, the cops are not turning up with anything. Because if you're a prominent figure, I guess it is kind of parallel, right? Like, you may have just as much manpower as the police officials if you really have the money or you have some kind of prominence, because you know a lot of people, right? And you know people who do some bad things, right? Who are very powerful doing those bad things. So it's probably helpful to ask them for assistance at some point, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Right? So Al Capone asked for this, but he's denied. Like, the police authorities say no.
Yeah.
Like, you're no. We put in all this work to get you here. You're not getting out that easily. But by March 6th, a new ransom letter arrives by Mel at the Lindbergh home. The letter is postmarked March 4th in Brooklyn, and it carries the perforated red and blue marks. The ransom has been raised to $70,000.
But they had 70,000, the money that was raised. Why didn't they just give it to the person? And
there was no, but it wasn't like, hey, I'm over here. Like, at this time, there hasn't been any kind of, you've just received a letter from this person.
But yeah,
it's not like
they could have made a news announcement and said that we have the ransom ready. Reach out to us. We want to give you the money.
Well, hold tight. A third ransom note postmarks from Brooklyn and also includes the secret marks. Arrives
the second or third?
This is the third one now. So another ransom note arrives.
So the second one arrived and it was 70. You said 70?
Mm-hmm.
And then the third one arrives. How long after that?
Let's say a day, like days pass and another one arrives.
It's becoming higher.
So it arrives in Henry Breckenridge's, so Charles' attorney and his friend. It arrives at in his mailbox. The note tells the Lindberghs that John Codone should be the intermediary between the Lindberghs and the kidnappers.
Who's John Codone?
I will get to him and his personality, or his identity, I should say. And requests notification in a newspaper that the third note has been received, right? So now the kidnapper's starting to make a move. Like, all right, I want you to use this person. Obviously, I will communicate to this person of how we should
do this.
And obviously not directly, but they will probably use someone, right? Probably. But you could see they're trying to orchestrate how this will be done, all of this. So the instructions specify the size of the box the money should come in and warns the family not to contact the police. So during this time, John F. Codone is a well-known Bronx personality and retired school teacher. He receives a letter written by the kidnappers, and it authorizes Codone to be their intermediary with the Lindbergh family. Charles accepts the letter as genuine. Following the kidnappers' latest instructions, Codone places a classified ad in the New York American Reading, and it says, "Money is ready, Joffsey." So money is ready, period, Joffsey, period.
What is Joffsey?
That seems like someone's name, right?
That is what Codone.
That's what he did. He put that, he was told, put this in, you're going to act as the intermediary, put this into the, or tell the newspaper to post this in one of their ads, or as one of their ads, right? Money is ready, Joffsey. Codone then waits for further instructions from the culprits. A meeting between Joffsey and a representative of the group that claims to be the kidnappers is scheduled for one late evening at Woodlawn Cemetery in the Bronx. So now things are starting to move a little bit, right? During the meeting, Codone notices that the man sounds foreign, but since the man is in the shadows during the conversation, Codone is unable to get a close look at his face. The man says his name is John, and he relates his story, and his story goes like this. He's a Scandinavian sailor, part of a gang of 3 men and 2 women. The baby was being held on a boat, unharmed, but would be returned only for a ransom. That was his short story that he told Codone. But Codone expresses some doubt of whether John actually has the baby or not. John promises some proof and claims that he'll soon return the baby's sleeping suit. But whether that's proof or not,
It's not.
yeah, because you can kill a baby and then take the suit, but
Yeah.
I think he's saying, are you sure you even had the baby in general?
Yeah,
Like,
you could have come with a photo or something to just prove that you actually have the baby.
true. No, well, I mean, you understand what I mean when I say, have you ever even had the baby?
Yeah, I
someone
get
could,
it.
yeah, someone randomly could say,
just
oh,
come
I'm
and
this
say,
person,
yeah, I
give
know.
me the money.
Yeah, I know.
You know, and they never even they never kidnapped anyone,
Yeah.
right? The stranger, John, asked Codone, would I burn if the package were dead? Codone questions if the baby's still alive or not. Why would you say something like that? What are you talking about? But the stranger is like, the baby's alive. Don't worry. The baby's still alive. By March 16th, Codone receives a toddler's sleeping suit by mail and a 7th ransom note. The Lindbergh family identifies the sleeping suit, and Codone places a new ad in the home news. So this is another newspaper. And it states, money is ready. No cops, no Secret Service. I come alone, like last time. On April 1st, Codone receives a letter saying it is time for the ransom to be delivered. The ransom is packaged in a wooden box that is custom made in hopes that it can be later identified. The ransom money includes a number of gold certificates. Since gold certificates are about to be withdrawn from circulation, it is hoped to draw greater attention to anyone spending them. The bills are not marked, but the serial numbers are recorded. On April 2nd, Codone is given a note by an intermediary, an unknown cab driver. Codone meets John and tells him that they have been able to raise only $50,000. The man accepts the money and gives Codone a note saying that the child is in the care of 2 innocent women. By May 12th, a delivery truck driver Orville Wilson and his assistant William Allen pulled to the side of the road about 4.5 miles south of the Lindbergh home, near the hamlet of Mount Rose in neighboring Hopewell Township. Allen gets out of the vehicle and walks into the grove of trees to urinate. He discovers something though. It's the body of a toddler. The skull is badly fractured and the body is decomposed, with evidence of scavenging by animals. There are indications of an attempt at a hasty burial. So it looks like someone tried to bury them, but this kid is unfortunately gone. Charles Jr. is gone, it seems. Because whose other little body would be there next, like this close to the Lindbergh family? The home nurse identifies the baby as the missing infant from the overlapping toes of the right foot and a shirt that she has made for him. It appears the child has been killed by a blow to the head.
Why would someone do that? Jeez.
So Charles Sr., Charles Lindbergh, insists on a cremation. So by early June 1932, officials begin to suspect that the crime has been perpetrated by someone the Lindberghs knew or know. Basically. Suspicion falls upon Violet Sharp, a British household servant at the Morrow, or Anne's family, on Anne's side, at the Morrow's home, who is given contradictory information. So she's been giving like contradictory information in comparison to everyone else, basically, surrounding her whereabouts on the night of the kidnapping.
Okay.
So she's like giving some information. They're like, well, that doesn't check out when we've asked so-and-so, or when we asked another person. You were over here, I thought. During this whole time, she's basically being asked these questions. She's like nervous and, which kind of gives off more suspicion, right, to the police, but she can't control herself. But instead of dealing with more questioning, Violet decides to commit suicide, June 20th, 1932, by ingesting a silver polish contained cyanide just before being questioned the fourth time.
Why?
Weeks pass and Violet's alibi is confirmed and police are criticized for heavy-handedness. So they're like,
they were pressuring
you guys are pressuring this innocent woman, and
and
she's committed suicide.
now 2 people have died.
What are you guys doing? Codone is also questioned by the police. And his home is searched, right? They're like, all right, maybe this guy knows, right? Maybe he's the one that did this. So search his home, right? They question him several times. Luckily, they don't find anything that's incriminating. Nothing is found. And Charles Sr. is actually very supportive of Codone during this time. So after the discovery of the body, Codone remains unofficially involved in the case, basically. To the public, he's kind of become this suspect, and in some circles, he's even villainized. They think, since you've been so tightly connected to the other side, you have something to do with it.
Yeah,
we
you
know.
must
Maybe
be
they
part
haven't
of-
dug it up yet, but I believe you're one of them. Right? The investigators that are working on the case are at a standstill, however. Right? They're like, we have no leads. There's no developments on this case at all. So police turn their attention to tracking the ransom payments. A pamphlet is prepared with the serial numbers on the ransom bills, and they make 250,000 copies of the pamphlets, and they start distributing them to businesses, mainly in the New York City region. By a presidential order, all gold certificates are to be exchanged for other bills by May 1st. So remember?
The gold certificates.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. By May 1st, 1933, a few days before the deadline, a man brings $67,501 to a Manhattan bank for exchange. He gives his name as J.J. Faulkner of 537 West 149th Street. Strange though, no one by the name of J.J. Faulkner lives at that address, and a name Jane Faulkner, who has been living there for 20 years earlier, denies any involvement. I don't know this person. During a 30-month period, a number of ransom bills are spent throughout New York City. Detectives realize that many of the bills are being spent along the same route, Lexington Avenue subway, which connects the Bronx with the east side of Manhattan, including the German-Austrian neighborhood of Yorkville. Remember, they're like, we feel like someone German has written this because the way these words are spelled has like similarities to German. And so they're like finding a trace. Like they're like, these things are like circulating around this like German community. By September 18th, 1934, a Manhattan bank teller notices a gold certificate from the ransom. A New York license plate number 4U-13-41-NY is penciled in the bill's margin and allows it to be traced to a nearby gas station. The station manager has written down the license number because his customer at that time was acting suspicious and was possibly a counterfeiter. The license plate belongs to a sedan owned by a gentleman named Richard Hauptmann of 1979 East 222nd Street in the Bronx. Richard happens to be an immigrant with a criminal record in Germany. They go to his address and they arrest Richard. While he is being arrested, he so happens to be carrying a single $20 gold certificate, and over $14,000 of the ransom money is found in his garage.
So they caught him.
Richard Hauptmann is brought in and he's interrogated. He's even beaten at least once throughout the following day and night. Richard states that the money and the other items has been left by his friend and former business partner, Isidor Fish. Isidor Fish has died by March 22nd, 1934, shortly after arriving back in Germany. So he's claiming his friend has given him these things, and his friend basically left shortly after that and died. Richard states that he has just learned only after Fish's death that the shoebox was left with him contained a considerable amount of money. I didn't check it. I didn't know that this box had tons of money. He just gave me this box and said, all right, I'm leaving. He tells the police that he only kept the money because it was owed to him from a business deal that he and Fish had made in the past. So Richard Hauptmann consistently denies any connection to the crime or knowledge that the money in his house is from the ransom. What are you believing right now? Because you just seem like you just have a look on your face.
Yeah, it's hard for me to believe him.
So you think he is the one that was involved?
He is kind of connected to it, but he cannot say that he didn't know anything at all.
So you think his friend was the one that did it? Or is the one I don't know if it's
his friend, but he knows something.
Okay. So you're not the only one. The police decide to search Richard's home, and they find a considerable amount of additional evidence that links him to the crime. One item is a notebook that contains a sketch of the construction of a ladder similar to that of which was found at the Lindbergh home in March 1932. They find that Codon's telephone number, along with his address, written on a closet wall, is in his house.
Yeah, so he can't say, oh, now my friend went and wrote all these things.
They find another key piece of evidence. A section of wood is in the attic of the home. The police have an expert examine the wood, and they determine that it's the same exact match to the wood used in the construction of the ladder found at the crime scene. Ah, boy, oh boy. Richard is indicted in the Bronx on September 24th, 1934, for extorting the $50,000 ransom from Charles Lindbergh. 2 weeks later, October 8th, Richard is indicted in New Jersey for the murder of Charles Augustus Lindbergh Jr., or Baby Charles. 2 days after that, he is surrendered to New Jersey authorities by New York Governor Herbert H. Lehman to face charges directly related to the kidnapping and the murder of the child. By October 19th, Richard is moved to Hunterdon County Jail in Flemington, New Jersey. So Richard is charged with capital murder, which basically means it's like you're a perpetrator that's eligible for the death penalty. So the trial is held in Hunterdon County Courthouse in Flemington, New Jersey, and is quickly dubbed the trial of the century. Like, this is crazy, right? Reporters swarm the town and every hotel room is booked. Judge Thomas Whitaker presides over the trial. In exchange for rights to publish Richard's story in their newspaper, Edward J. Riley is hired by the New York Daily Mirror to serve as Richard's attorney. So, did you catch that? So the person who's hired to serve as Richard's attorney, he's only hired because a newspaper has basically put him in that place so that they can extract the story from that. Which is, it's kind of jacked up.
Yeah, you're not going to be helped that much.
Isn't that kind of messed up?
Yeah, he's not getting the best defense then.
Right. The representation isn't there. Evidence against Richard includes $20,000 of the ransom money they found in his garage, and testimony alleging that his handwriting and spelling are similar to those of the ransom notes.
What did he say about that?
We'll get to how he's interacting or how he's feeling about all this. 8 handwriting experts point out similarities between the ransom notes and Richard's handwriting specimens. The defense calls an expert to rebut this evidence, while 2 others decline to testify. The latter 2 demand $500 before looking at the notes and are dismissed when Lloyd Fisher, a member of the Richards legal team, declines. Other experts that are retained by the defense are not even called to testify.
Why? Why were they not called to testify?
They just weren't called to testify.
So he's not even...
It's like that. It's not even like...
It's not about you. We know you did it. We're going to...
Yeah, it's not even a fair shot, in other words. It doesn't seem like it.
We know the handwriting is yours. This thing was found in your house. There is no way you're telling us it's not you. You're going to jail whether you like it or not.
No, you're not going to jail.
You're going to die.
Yeah. Do you agree with this?
Yeah. If he did it.
You seem certain, though.
Yeah, because there is no way you're telling me all these things are in your place and it's your house. Even if your friend came, it's your house.
On the basis of the work of Arthur Kohler at the Forest Products Laboratory, the state introduces photographs demonstrating that the part of the wood from the ladder match a plank from the floor of Richard's attic. The type of wood, the direction of the tree growth, the milling pattern, the inside and outside surface of the wood, the grain on both sides are identical. And 4 oddly placed nail holes line up with the nail holes in Joyce Richards' attic. So, like a place in Richard's attic, basically. They mention that Codon's address and telephone number were written in pencil on a closet door in Richard's home. Richard's reasoning for this is the following. I must have read it in the paper about the story. I was a little bit interested, and I wanted to keep a little bit of a record. And maybe I was just on the closet. Mind you, I want to tell you how he said it, basically. Because, he's an immigrant, so he's speaking slightly different. So he says, and maybe I was just on the closet and was reading the paper and put it down the address. I can't give you any explanation about the telephone number. So he's...
How's that? That's so dumb, though. You can't say, because I was listening to the news and I had this, or I was reading the papers and I had this, so I just started to jot down.
You didn't, but at this time, you don't have a cell phone. So, you just hear it, you're like, this is a fascinating story. Let me write some details down really quick.
Why would you write down something about...
And also, what about the fact, think about it on the contrary. What if you want to help in some way? So you're like, well, if I catch some details, I can call this person. Let me jot down their number in case I find something a bit strange. I can call them.
No, if you find something strange, you call the police.
No, he hears directly that this person is basically the person in the center of it all.
Like, let's say you're a basic part, you're just a normal person living somewhere. You wouldn't think, oh, if I have information, if you have information, you call the police. You don't try to get to the person who's the. I don't think that's. He's just fishy.
All right, let's continue. Doubting Richard, jeez.
Yeah, I'm doubting Thomas. It's called that.
The sketch of the ladder is also brought up. The ladder that was found in Richard's notebook. Richard explains that this picture and other sketches therein, in the notebook, in other words, are from children. Children drew these. Children drew these ladders in this notebook. They're not from me.
Which children?
Also, despite not having... Oh, you asked what are the children? Or,
who are the children who drew it?
well, he doesn't further elaborate on the children that drew them, but you're also not buying that either, it seems.
No. Who are the children?
But
Take
see,
me to
all
the
right,
children.
but also think of it like this. His English is limited.
So?
So? What do you mean so?
Get a German person to translate then, and then they speak in German.
It seems.
Just get a translator.
But he has all of this stuff going on right now.
Not him get a translator.
They weren't trying to... All right.
They should get a translator.
They're not trying to beef his defense up. Why? No, we found the money. We found wood. We found a notebook with a drawn ladder in it. Charles Lindbergh is a very prominent figure. No, if we have someone that we can place down on the record who's like kidnapped the kid, put him down.
That ladder was not like the same as any other ladder out there. The drawing.
No, it seemed like a home constructed ladder. It didn't seem like it was necessarily professionally done enough to where you can put it in Home Depot or something.
He's saying that is making me feel like defending him still.
But he's new to the country.
It doesn't matter. Like, all this evidence is pointing at him and he's not even doing a good job.
And he can't even afford his own attorney.
Should have taken public defense.
Jeez. Despite not having any obvious source of earned income, the police found a $400 radio, approximately equivalent to like $9,000 in 2024. They found this radio in Richard's place, along with evidence that proves he sent his wife on a trip to Germany. So it just sounds like someone has stumbled upon a massive amount of money recently.
Yeah.
With all this evidence brought forth, Richard is identified as the man to whom the ransom money was delivered to. Other witnesses testify that it's Richard who spent some of the Lindbergh gold certificates, and that he has been seen in the area of the estate, East Amwell, New Jersey, near Hopewell. And some of them even go as far as saying, yeah, we saw him on the day of the kidnapping. Or, oh yeah, he was absent from work this day, right? But these are just people, yeah, people just wanting to get a word in. So you don't know how true or false this is. It's people just talking. They could have said something.
But things are still not lining up for him. He can't say at it, oh, I didn't do it. And everything is just like against him. Like, there is nothing.
You're saying the case, it's not being disproven either.
Yeah. Everything
that's been brought forth. It's not disproven.
If he said this was from kids, he should have said this kid drew it. If he said, oh, I wrote this down, should have said because of as in could have had a better explanation, or this money was left here, but apparently my friend died immediately after arriving in Germany. What is that? Doesn't make sense.
Okay. The prosecution rests their case, and the defense opens with a lengthy examination of Richard. Richard has an opportunity to state his testimony, and Richard denies being guilty. He insists that the box of gold certificates has been left in his garage by his friend, Isidore Fish, who has since returned to Germany, December 1933, and has died. Richard says that he has one day found shoebox left behind by his friend, and it was stored on the top shelf of the kitchen broom closet. Only later, he discovered that there was money in it. So he's saying, I didn't know, right? Yeah, he's still moving forward with that argument of, well, I wasn't sure what was in it. I just took my friend's box, and that was the end of that. Mind you, the amount of money that was that's found in this box is about $906,000 in our time, right? So about $40,000 back then. Richard also claims that Fish owed him money. He owed him about $7,500 in business funds. So he kept the money himself. He thought, all right, I found that all of this money is in this box. Well, my friend Isidore did owe me money, so I'll just keep it. I won't.
And did the police try to see if this Isidore person is real and if they died and if they were in the country?
Not really. Not that I can find. And I think also we kind of have to think about how it's at this time different jurisdictions aren't really that communicative. Even in this country.
Yeah, country by country.
And so,
different countries.
And so if you're talking about from Germany to the United States, I highly doubt they're even going to.
What about the airport? They could have checked the airport if this person left through the airport. They didn't want to do that.
Yeah. If you have this much evidence, do you think you're gonna go this far? Like you have a drawing, you have the money.
I'd say it's you.
You have the contact details of the intermediary.
No, I wouldn't.
You're not gonna go that far.
I'd be like, it's you. There is no one else.
But defense calls Richard's wife, Anna, to basically see if she can mirror his story about Isidore. Right? Is this the same thing? So they cross-examine her, and she admits that while she hangs her apron every day on a hook higher than the top shelf, she does not remember seeing any box up there. Later, rebuttal witnesses testify that Isidore could have not been at the scene of the crime and that he didn't have money for medical treatments when he died of tuberculosis. So it seems that
Because how comes you steal this money and you don't even go with a bit of it to Germany? It doesn't make sense.
So it seems that they do ultimately contact or at least call some people to testify and see if he's not only just real, but what's the story behind this Isidore guy. So Isidore's landlady even testifies that Fish could barely afford the $3.50 weekly rent of his room. He's not going to just have all this money and then struggle to pay my cheap rent.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
In his closing summation, Riley, Richard's attorney, argues that the evidence against Richard is entirely circumstantial because no reliable witness has placed Richard at the scene of the crime.
Witness placed the...
Hold on, you have to hear. This is a decent point, right? Because no reliable witness has placed Richard at the scene of the crime, nor has his fingerprints been identified on the ladder or on the ransom notes or anywhere in the nursery. So basically, all your...
The evidence is all in his house.
But think about it like this. Think about it like this. If you really think about that argument, it's not a bad one.
No, it's not circumstantial though. All these things are in his house.
No, think about it. They've only been arguing about the evidence they have found.
Which is true. It's that.
No, but they didn't find anything at the site of the crime.
It doesn't matter. Maybe he wore a glove.
Nothing was pointed. In other words, no one has placed him back at the crime scene.
No one could have, but the evidence is showing us all these things.
No.
Yeah.
It's almost like, what? Isn't that similar to circle reasoning in some way? Like if you use that evidence to, I guess, potentially find some things on site, yes, right? But there was nothing that was further drawn from this. It was like, well, you're guilty because we found the shoebox.
Yeah.
But you didn't connect it back to this. No, you're guilty because we found this.
Yeah.
That's not enough.
It is. Honestly.
Why?
These are all the things that were used.
Were used? No, he drew a ladder.
Not used per se, but the money. The money, what do you say about the
Okay,
money?
sure. But he was living in an area where
The
the money was
handwriting.
circulated.
The handwriting.
Okay.
It's not about it where the money circulated. He had a large chunk of money.
I know that.
He was acting suspicious. That's why the person at the gas station wrote
No,
down.
they didn't say Richard. They didn't know.
They
Didn't. No, I understand, but
That's how he was found, though, because his number plate was written. He was acting fishy.
Something still. I don't know.
It's him until you prove something else.
Okay, despite all of the arguments, Richard is convicted February 13th, 1935, and is immediately sentenced to death. His attorneys appealed to the New Jersey Court of Errors and Appeals, which at this time is it's like the state's highest court, so you can't go any higher than this. And the appeal is argued June 29th, 1935. So the New Jersey governor, Harold G. Hauptmann, secretly visits Richard in his cell on the evening of October 16th. A stenographer who speaks fluent German accompanies the governor. After this visit, Governor Hauptmann urges members of the Court of Errors and Appeals to visit Richard. He's like, I just had a deep conversation with them. I don't know if this is the case. Like, I feel like something is, like, I don't know if this man would even do something like this. Late January 1936, while declaring that he held no position on the guilt or innocence of Richard, Governor Hauptmann cites evidence that indicates the crime was not a one-person job and directs Schwarzkopf to continue a thorough and impartial investigation and effort to bring all parties involved to justice. However, it becomes known among the press that by March 27th, Governor Hauptmann is considering a second reprieve of Richard Hauptmann's death sentence and is seeking opinions about whether the governor had the right to issue a second reprieve. So it's almost like he's trying to have this heard again and ultimately help him. Because he's like, I just don't know if this is... I had this conversation with him and I just don't see it. This couldn't be the case. Maybe he fell on some unlucky things, like, several events came into play where it happened to position him in certain things, but he's not, I just don't know if he's guilty. By March 30th, 1936, Richard requests for clemency, which basically is like a plead for mercy. And if you plead for mercy, it can sometimes influence a lighter sentencing of some kind, but it's denied by the New Jersey Board of Pardons. Governor Hauptmann later announces that this decision is the final legal action in this case and that he will not grant any other reprieves. He won't try and basically have this reheard or anything of that nature. He's going to have to step away. Richard ultimately turns down a large offer from a Hearst newspaper for a confession and refuses a last-minute offer to commute his sentence from the death penalty to life without parole in exchange for a confession. So he did have a chance, or he does have a chance to
say I did it.
If he said he did it, he won't be sentenced to death, but he would be sentenced to life in prison. Some people may argue, well, what the crap is the difference?
I'm just dying.
What's the difference? So maybe Richard's like, I for one, I know I didn't do this. Number two,
it's the same thing.
What does it matter? I can't be with my wife. I can't live freely.
Yeah.
You might as well just take me out then.
Yeah.
By April 3rd, 1936, Richard Hauptmann is executed by electric chair at the age of 36. After his death, some reporters and independent investigators come up with numerous questions about the way in which the investigation was run and the fairness of the trial.
People try to do those things later on. They don't do it when someone actually needs them to do it and help. They try to do it. I think it's like they feel guilty after someone has died.
I don't know if they feel guilty. I think they're trying to get the most eyes.
But still, it's not right to do things after the fact because things have already
But they even
happened.
mention witness tampering and planted evidence.
Who planted? Which evidence? Why? How?
Maybe officials planted some evidence.
Like what?
Maybe police did.
The
They were
handwriting can't
remember
be
they were
planted though.
remember they were having some trouble with some leads and everything.
Yeah, but handwriting can't be planted. What I found not actually okay was the attic thing, because these houses generally they're usually built by different people. The houses, so
You mean
probably
houses in general? Yeah.
yeah, houses in general. So the material probably used to build a certain house is the same material that is used to build a certain house. And maybe in that neighborhood, you could have found that maybe it's the same contractor who used it for for the same houses. So that's the only thing I had Nene I thought of. And the nail thing, it's the contractor who made the house, not him, unless he built the
No,
his
but
own
they're
house.
saying you use the materials from your own home.
And that's why I'm saying it's not the only
Oh, I
house.
see what you're saying. You're saying
Yeah.
it's not the only house where you would be able to extract those materials. You'd be
Yeah.
able to extract those materials from other homes.
That's the loophole I saw. And if he wanted to be helped, things like the image of the ladder, he would have said that is not mine. I don't know how he got there. Instead of saying some kids. Which kids?
I can think of two things,
What?
or at least one. So one of the reasons why I don't find myself necessarily agreeing with his death sentence, at least, is this man did not have fair representation. He's arriving to a new country where there's not tons of information. This is not internet age. Oh, what do I say if the police... There's lack of information. You don't even speak English fluently. And your attorney just so happens to be hired basically by a newspaper company so that they can easily leak that person for information about the case. Like, fair representation is probably one of the biggest things or one of the biggest influences as far as sentencing goes. We've seen that with OJ, right? Where evidence points directly to the man, but since he has tons of good representation, he's off the hook. So now we're seeing from the contrary, where you have the worst representation, you see how it gets out of hand fast. Okay, let's say maybe he did do it or something of that nature. I mean, the man deserves death.
I think if he did it, he didn't do it alone the way the mayor said. Is
Exactly.
it the governor?
Like,
Yeah.
the governor.
Yeah.
It's just like...
And that's what he did wrong. He could have just confessed and
Just
said
imagine,
it was this
imagine
and this and
this.
this.
No, but imagine this. The man is imagine
Even the wife said that she didn't see anything.
Imagine Isidore or some other German friends he has gave him these things. Hey, Richard, keep this in your house.
Hold this
He had nothing to do with it, but they're like, oh, give it to Richard. He won't, like, you already know he's a nice guy. He wouldn't do anything. He wouldn't check if we tell him not to check. They're like, here, keep this book, keep this box, right? Blah, 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 right? Keep all of this stuff, right?
So they wanted things to lay low.
So
and
it's
then
almost
come and
like,
take it.
all right, give it to Richard for a few months, lay low. And that's what I mean by that's what his attorney meant by they didn't necessarily place him in the site where the crime took place. Someone could have dropped this stuff off and you're over here punishing an innocent man at the end of the day. Like,
You're innocent and you see a chunk load of money in your house, even if it's your friends and they owe you money, you should be skeptical.
you're not, all right, let's place the scene for a second. Skepticism. You wouldn't be. The reason why is this is a tight-knit German community in New York City, where New York City is known for tight-knit communities. It's not uncommon to have some kind of friend or some kind of family friend to say, hey, keep this $1,000 for me. No, that's a circle of trust you're ruining. You're talking about the only people you resonate with in a country that you're foreign. No.
I don't think he's entirely innocent.
No, but it's not about that necessarily. It's that you didn't have enough, in my opinion. He could have found these things, someone could have gave it to him. You didn't place enough emphasis on, okay, so this is how we place this to here now. This is how we connect it. It was kind of like with fair representation, I don't know if they would have easily been able to argue for this man's death that quick. I think with fair representation, they would have a harder argument for sentencing him to death or even placing him in the crime scene at all.
Overall, he has not. I'm not convinced he is somehow linked to it.
Somehow. You see? Somehow he's linked. Somehow he happens to be linked.
Somehow.
Do you really think that's good enough?
Everything was in his house. The money he used.
He was using the money because, and also that actually is a good argument for his defense. If he's using the money just casually, right? He happens to be using the money casually. He doesn't know.
He was acting fishy.
No, but he doesn't know.
He was acting fishy. That's why the number.
You know why he was probably acting fishy? Because the guy questioned him. Wait a second. Isn't this one of those bills that was blah, blah, blah? Wait a moment. I saw these numbers. Richard was probably like thinking, no, I just got this from, from friends and so forth. I don't know. I didn't recognize that. And so he's a foreigner that is being accused of something.
The number he wrote on his wall.
Okay.
Why?
Why would he write it? Friends could have given him that information. Write this number down for us.
Just forget it. He could have snitched. He could have said it.
It's a tight-knit community.
He could have said this, the way he mentioned the person who
Yeah,
died.
he mentioned him in a good way, though. He said we had a business kind of ordeal.
Could have mentioned everyone. He's still connected. Could have said something to save his own life.
Anyway, let's fast forward to the 1980s. Anna is his wife, or formerly, I should say. She sues the state of New Jersey for an unjust execution of her husband. However, the suits are dismissed due to prosecution immunity and because the statute of limitations has run out by this time, basically. However, Anna continued to fight for her husband's, basically for that execution. She believed that it was wrong. She did this up until her death at 95 years old. She died in 1994 at 95 years old. So she continued to fight until she died for his innocence.
Yeah, she tried. She believed him.
Yes, she did. So let's jump into some theories really fast. So a number of books have asserted Richard's innocence, generally highlighting inadequate police work at the crime scene. Lindbergh's interference in the investigation, so Charles interfering in the investigation, and the ineffectiveness of Richard's counsel. And weaknesses in witnesses and physical evidence. So remember all those witnesses testifying, yep, I saw him over here, yep, he quit this job, blah, blah, blah. Another theory is from Ludovic Kennedy. In particular, Ludovic questioned much of the evidence at all, such as the origin of the ladder and the testimony of many of the witnesses. Another theory is provided by Lloyd Gardner, who mentions a fingerprint expert, Erastus Mead Hudson, applied the then rare silver nitrate fingerprint process to the ladder and did not find Richard's fingerprints. Even in places that the maker of the ladder must have touched, still didn't find Richard's fingerprints. Do you understand from that point how they never placed him in the crime scene?
I know.
They just used this stuff to pin this sentencing on him?
I know.
And you still agree with that?
I'm just like, you should have said something that made it, I don't know. You didn't do a good job to say it wasn't you, to prove your whereabouts, to prove everything. And I also think that this ransom technically had nothing to do with the child. I've had that notion, like the child died, and since it was a huge hit, probably people tried to get money off of the case, but they didn't necessarily kidnap.
So
the
you're
child.
saying alright, what do you mean? Are you saying that
It's
the
a
people who
different thing.
kidnapped weren't really after the kid? They were just trying to get the money?
No.
Because of course, right?
No, the way you said when he went to that meeting, how do we really know you were the one who kidnapped the child?
Oh, I see. Yeah.
So I think that technically this group that took the money didn't actually take the baby or kill the baby.
Wow. And that's why it brings back to what I said.
These
They
ones
could
were
have used
just-
Richard as a drop-off point. Here, Richard, hold this stuff for us.
But that's why I'm saying those ones, even if they used him as whatever, but they didn't necessarily kidnap the child because this was a hot case.
Yes.
So everyone knew it and they're like, okay, so they'll just believe us if we said this. We have the child.
Well, some people believe that the child, when they were abducted, there was possibly a fall at some point when they were coming. Like the person who kidnapped the, Charles Jr. There was possibly some kind of fall that led to the baby being killed.
Because of
basically.
yeah.
Yeah. There was some
impact
kind
on
of
the head,
fall
yeah.
there. And so at that point, they're like, all right, Charles Jr.'s already dead, right? I'm carrying this baby who's dead now. Let me just dump him somewhere. Maybe there was some kind of panic. Let me try to bury
'cause
them
it was,
or something, but it's not working that well. Just let me leave. Let me run because this is already too late.
But also, I don't understand how, if he was close to the residence, how it took all those days for him to be found.
What do you mean? There are no cameras.
The baby, see, people are searching around the place.
No, but all right. So imagine you have an acre of land, right? Because this is not, because you're just checking the acre of land, but maybe on the outskirts there's the forest. No one has checked that yet, right?
Oh, yeah, I get it.
Now this is why the police officers were criticized. People have thought like, hey, you guys
'Cause the ransom-
should have done a better job.
Ransom could not have been paid if they found the baby at first. None of all these things could have happened.
I don't think it was orchestrated well enough either,
Yeah.
right? Like, all right, we paid you this ransom. There should have been a simultaneous trade-off. Take the money,
Give her the
give
baby.
us Charles.
Yeah. True.
So it was definitely dealt with unprofessionally in some way.
Yeah, and at this time we've said, it was those times a billion times, that is just showing that these people are just irresponsible as cops,
Yeah.
as the authority. We can't keep saying, it was the old days, they didn't have this, they didn't have this.
Okay.
No, we've said that in a lot of cases that we've covered, that no,
So you're not giving them
this one I'm not.
you're not giving them
that.
a pass.
Yeah.
That's one of the main reasons why it's criticized, because I mean, really, the police didn't do a good job during this, right? They didn't really have, I mean, partially, once when they started to decide, like, hey, maybe we can track the money that was given, but I still lean on the side of, well, you never really connected anything directly to the kidnapping, like the actual event.
No,
of it.
it's connected also. If someone puts on gloves, they can't be found. If someone did all the necessary things not to leave a trace, they won't.
The funny thing is, they didn't even ask, where are you at? Where were you at that time?
Yeah, they should have asked about that
You
to
see?
see an alibi.
Exactly. Where were you at this time? Right? I don't know. They could have asked more things than this. No, and that's what I mean. I keep repeating that, but I can't help it. Because they didn't even question, where are you located at this time? How did you get here? Blah, blah, blah. They didn't even touch on so many things that are important to believing someone did this.
Connected somehow.
But you will agree that there's a... I'll explain it like this. There are good connections and there are bad connections. Criminals know good people. Criminals know people who have nothing to do with what they're doing. That's a good connection. Because they have nothing to do with it, but they're connected to these people. Right? Bad connections is what I'm arguing for right here. I don't know if it's not sufficient enough to say that Richard was a bad connection. Like I said, he could have been given all of these things. He could have even invited these friends in at one point, and then one of his friends were just hanging by that closet door, just wrote some things down. Richard asked, "What is that?"
Why did
Don't
he
mind
say
it.
he did it himself?
I think he could have definitely been like covering up for someone.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah,
Maybe.
that's the thing, and that's the problem. He shouldn't have done that. But anyway, did you finish the story? Is the story done?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a good story. I'm still doubting him. He should have said something if he was not directly involved. But other than that, he is somehow connected to it.
So you don't feel
Somehow.
bad.
I can't say that I feel bad, but a death sentence is too much.
So you don't agree with the death sentence?
Yeah, that is too much, but I think he should have said something. That's him.
That's him.
In jail before he died.
Yeah.
Ah, he wore a suit.
Of course.
Why? Because he's going to die.
It's a time frame. Everyone wore suits.
See, he should be in prison, that's it. Yeah, but anyway, that was his fate. I think he just sealed his mouth. He didn't want to say it, but I think he knew more than what he said. So it's unfortunately landed him a death sentence. But other than that, I guess,
Unfortunately.
yeah, and I guess we'll have to see you guys in the next one. Bye.